What's up, everybody? Welcome to the House of Mario, the South Australian Nintendo podcast that is backed by 120 Power Star rating. I'm your host, Drew Agnew, and the doors to episode 165 are open. This week on the show, Michael Pachter has some very hot takes about the Nintendo Switch, and Bryce and I dive into our adventures in the Crown Tundra in Pokémon Sword and Shield. And to talk all about that is my beautiful BLT, Bryce DeWitt. Bryce, yes. How are you going?
Good, mate. Good.
Excellent.
Yes. I think we're very busy people, but good otherwise.
Oh, yes. There's nothing wrong with being a bit busy.
I guess so.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. I know how you feel. But the other day, I got to admit, a wonderful idea with someone who I work with. He got his esky out and he had 2 Zinger burgers, speaking of the BLT Bryce DeWitt. And I'm like, man, that is a great idea, having some KFC at work. You know, we're about an hour's away from the closest KFC, so it's quite a treat when you see some KFC out in the wild that far away. And actually, the other day, Chantel was like, do you want anything from the mountain while up there? I'm like, yeah, so get me a family box, so if I can have 2 burgers, and the next day I can have 2 burgers at work. And it was delicious.
Well, there you go.
Absolutely wonderful.
Beautiful.
Now, this goes into the question, Bryce. If you're at KFC, what do you go and order? What's your go-to order at KFC?
Probably just a Zinger box.
Zinger box, yeah.
I don't think you can go wrong.
No.
Not really.
Definitely not.
No.
So there's been a lot of thinking about KFC in the last few days for me. Been really enjoying it. That family box blew my mind.
Not sponsored, by the way.
No. Imagine if you were sponsored by KFC, that'll be right.
Yeah, KFC Gaming, get on us. Yeah.
Yeah, so they've got a gaming division. But I was thinking, I don't hear a lot of Americans talk about KFC. Obviously, KFC comes from there. They're always talking about McDonald's or Taco Bell and these other places. I got no idea really what they are. In-N-Out Burger, apparently pretty good. Chantel's been to the States and she can vouch for it. Mm-hmm. In-N-Out Burger. But never hear about KFC. I don't think I've heard about it once. You know, I listen to, Kind of Funny and many other American podcasts. So, don't know. You've got American friends who you talk to with Final Fantasy and stuff. Do you hear them talk about KFC?
It's usually, that's the thing is, I think Popeyes has become more of a thing.
Popeyes? I don't even know what Popeyes is.
Yeah, Popeyes. It's a chicken joint.
No, I haven't heard of it.
No, yeah, apparently that's more of a thing these days. I hear about that more than I do KFC.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
It's not a dirty sailor that eats spinach. It's a chicken joint. But
Popeyes is just bags of spinach. Well, that's a great tie back to Nintendo because Miyamoto loves Popeye.
He does.
He loves Popeye.
He does, yeah.
Yeah.
Something. I eat my spinach on Popeye the Sailor. I can't remember.
No. I haven't watched it in a long time.
Yeah. It used to be one of those viewing things that I used to watch as a kid, on Cartoon Network. And then, that was it. That was it.
That was it. That's what you had Cartoon Network for.
Yeah, it was Popeye. Yeah. That and Pokemon, I guess. We'll talk enough about that this week.
We've got a lot of Pokemon talk to talk about. And I know a fair few of our listeners, they don't like Pokemon. They don't want to listen to Pokemon. We had Stephen in the Discord. I think I mentioned something about we missed some information about the Crown Tundra last week because we recorded early. So by the time it came around Tuesday, I'm like, hey, just remember we recorded on Sunday. And he's like, well, it's okay because I tune out once Pokemon discussions comes up.
Jesus.
Jesus.
Harsh.
So I know a lot of people are out there, so we'll break it up. The second half of the episode will be all about the Crown Tundra because it is the big release on Nintendo Switch this week. And, Pokemon's my favourite franchise, so...
Well, yeah.
What are you going to do about it?
That's the thing at the end of the day. As we want to put it, it is the biggest talking point of discussion. And that's the same thing with any major release when it comes to a Nintendo IP is, hey, look... That's the thing that come out this week. That's the majority of what we're going to be talking about. And this will probably be the last time in a fair while you'd probably hear about Pokemon until Snap or, whatever they decide to do. So,
yeah. Well, we'll talk about it later in the episode, but I dare say we'll be seeing some stuff probably February next year to do with announcements and...
Oh, yeah. But nothing full dive until Snap or whatever is coming up next. Yeah. Yeah. We're at the end of it. At the end of Sword and Shield.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a hell of a ride, but yeah, like we said, we'll get into it later. So, have you been playing much on Switch apart from Pokemon?
No.
Oh, good. Neither have I. We can move right past that.
That's right.
Yeah. So we'll make it nice and snappy. We'll get straight into the news, I reckon.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. And this first story is going to be funny. I don't think you probably would have heard about it. So this
Probably not.
This is going to be great. Getting your hot takes over Michael Pachter's hot takes. So let's get into it.
Woohoo! Yeah! Pika, pika! Is that all?
Pokemon are my friends.
My body is still.
Thanks, Ike. Hot take.
Very hot take. So this is from gamingbolt.com, and the title is Nintendo should get rid of Nintendo Switch and only have the Switch Lite.
Oh, I
Quote
did
by
see
Michael
this.
Pachter. Yeah, so you saw this.
I saw this. I thought it was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard.
So yeah. So I'm going to read the quote just for anyone that hasn't caught up on this. So Michael Pachter is an industry analyst who analyzes the video game industry, makes predictions for.
You don't say.
No, I'm just putting it out there.
No, you said it. Analyst.
Analyst.
Analyst to describe an analyst. Just keep going.
So yeah, he's a video game analyst who analyzes the video game industry, makes predictions. Like, oh yeah,
you see what I mean?
I see what you mean, man.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, he has takes, but people just like scratch their head and like, And I think this is one of them. This is very relevant to
Definitely
Nintendo.
one of them. Yeah.
So just going halfway through the article here. So speaking with Gaming Vault in a recent interview, Pachter said that the Switch's hybrid concept isn't one that gets a lot of use. And the smart thing for Nintendo to do would be to drop the console side of things and run the Switch into a purely handheld device. So, quote, I don't really understand the whole hybrid concept, Pachter told Gaming Bolt. I think that it was something Iwata did to differentiate the Switch, and he wanted to have a console that could go back and forth from console to portable. But I don't think most people play in both modes. I'd say that maybe 20% of Switch owners play both modes, and I think most Switch owners play it handheld only. So honestly, I don't understand the whole point of the hybrid. Of the hybrid. Who cares? Play as a handheld. And he goes on to say, and Nintendo isn't that smart, he continued. So you never know what they will do next. But I think the smart thing would be to get rid of the Switch console and only have the Switch Lite. Get rid of the docking station, get rid of the playing on the TV, maybe offer a Fire Stick style dongle for those who want to play it on the TV. But I just think a portable only Switch makes the most sense. It's the cheapest to make, and they could make the screen nicer and have a better build quality. And speaking about next gen or what Nintendo would have in store, Pat just said, I'm not sure what we'll see from them in the next generation. If there is an upgrade to processing power, that should at least put some flash memory in it so you can download some games and not have to screw around with cartridges. End quote. So Bryce here is cringing. I internally are cringing, but I had to read that, so I can't cringe and read it.
You've probably read it a couple times and just been like, oh!
I haven't, but I've just heard a few takes on it.
Like even if he is correct, let's assume he is correct, and 80% of Switch owners don't have never even touched it and don't use the TV mode.
Yeah,
right. Let's assume that's a thing. I think just the thing being able to do that in itself is not even just a novelty; it's like a part of its identity.
Yeah, literally
as a console. So you take that away, it's literally just another handheld console. And I don't think, I think almost the point of combining these two things in general was combining a market that was so segregated into one thing, so that all the sales could sort of just go into that one product. And I think it's a perfect way to settle it. And even if you do think that it's like, people mostly play handheld, it's like, yeah, they probably do, right? I'm not going to say they don't, because there's a lot of handheld compatible titles that are really good on the Switch. But there's also a lot of games that look absolutely gorgeous blown up on a TV screen, played with a better controller than what the Joy-Cons are.
Yeah.
And they can invest the money and put more grunt into those Joy-Cons, but they're already $120. I'm not expecting them to get any better than what they already are.
I hope so.
Not without a price jump. To be honest, like apart from the Joy-Con drift, what is really wrong with those controllers in terms of how much they've got packed into them?
Yeah, well, I don't have a problem apart from
infrared, HD rumble, motion controls, gyroscopic, everything, detachable. You know, they charge on the console, rechargeable batteries. You can use them one. It's like it's two controllers in a single package, even though that's questionable. There's already a lot packed into them, and like they could use better grade materials and do all that stuff and whatever. But I feel like they would be jacking up the price to do that. I don't think Joy-Cons are the optimum way to play literally anything on the Switch at all. Maybe an RPG where you don't have a lot of action, it's great, like Pokemon or Fire Emblem. But the original selling point of the console, Breath of the Wild, absolutely not. There is so many better ways in terms of control to play that game, and it's also much better looking on a bigger screen.
Yeah. So like this weekend with the Crown Tundra, I hadn't played my Switch in a long time on the TV, mainly because my main save files were put onto my Switch Lite, being Pokemon and some other stuff I was playing. And like this weekend, I'm like, well, I want to play it on the TV, so I moved it all over, and it's just so much more fun. Not more fun, but it's just so much prettier just on the big TV, like, naturally. And just like we said this about like the Switch Lite when it's coming out, you just lose so much functionality and just use case of the Switch.
Yeah.
Like even if you buy a Switch and you're like, I just want to play it handheld, I don't even care about on the TV, and you have your dock in the cupboard or something. Like, but if you have Mario Kart or Smash Bros and you have 4 people over having a bit of a beer and a bit of a carry on, you're like, well, I'll tell you what, we can actually play. I've actually got Mario Kart, but sick. You go and get your dock out the cupboard and hook it up, and then you've got Mario Kart on the TV. But if you just had the handheld version, you just shit out of luck, really. You're not playing that.
But then there's a lot of people that argue the point. It's just like there's many more social activities that you could be doing that'd be better than playing Mario Kart on the TV. To which, like, I raise, yeah, probably. But have you ever played Mario Kart?
They're like, yes, good point, son.
It's like, let's play Mario Kart, fellas. I got a Switch here. Oh, wicked. It's like, yes, but it's a Switch Lite, so yeah, Mario Kart will have to be played.
I just associate Mario Kart with Mario Kart 64.
Yeah.
I never even think about it with Mario Kart 8.
No.
That'll be mad. 8 players and all that.
But yeah, it is really, it is such a part of the identity of the console that even if you did assume that only 20% of the people are actually using that functionality of it, like taking that away from the people that want to play on the TV or experience it and all that stuff. And then you've got stuff like Ring Fit Adventure, which is, you would not want to play that on a Switch Lite, for example. I have that now. That's something I never brought up on the show, but I picked one up. I picked a copy of Ring Fit up because I know that flies out of stock like everywhere it goes. And I intend to, give it a good crack, but I just haven't had the time. But playing something like that on a Switch Lite, no. Like, why would you even bother?
That'd be weird, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Why would you even bother trying? And then you've got stuff like Mario Party, which is literally impossible without it. You need, like, detachable Joy-Cons, all that shit, like, that's not available in the original package. And if you're going out and buying additional Joy-Cons for your Switch Lite, you're doing it wrong. It makes no sense. The point of the console is to have that modulability for varied experiences. And then if you've got a Switch Lite, you've got it in handheld mode for sure. But obviously you can't access the same sort of experience that you would from an original Switch console.
Yeah. Also something I don't understand why he sort of like has this take that if he was correct, there's already the Switch he's suggesting. It's the Switch Lite is the handheld only version. If what he's saying was correct, then wouldn't the market have spoken and just be everyone's just buying Switch Lites?
That's exactly right.
And like Switches aren't staying in stock because they definitely are.
Yeah.
They definitely are just flying off the shelves, the normal Switch.
Yeah. And we went into a friggin', a hardware deficit there for like during Corona where they were literally, you could not find them. People were scalping the shit out of them.
And like what your mate Peachy, he was on the show a few months ago. He bought a Switch Lite because he couldn't find the normal Switch.
Exactly, and then he upgraded later.
Yeah, then when the normal Switch came to stock, he said, "You know what? I want the TV."
Like, and that's the other thing as well. Is like now that the 3DS production has ended, do you know how impossible it is to find a 3DS?
I would imagine pretty hard.
It's very hard.
I've got a few here. I haven't been looking.
you can't and I was like, you know what? I really feel like playing black 2, white 2, whatever. And I was sort of like in the mood. I'm just like, you know what? I might actually buy like a cheap 3DS if there's any available, just like a new one, because I never got one. And like maybe a couple Pokemon games or something. But scalpers have literally picked all that shit up now that the 3DS production.
Have you looked at EB Games and locally?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's all gone. All gone. Yeah. So, you know, during that process as well, a lot of people have picked all that stuff up too, and they've sort of taken that off the shelves. But the one thing that's always been consistent is there's always been Switch Lites on shelves.
Yeah.
That's never changed. And it's not like the Switch Lite's getting any more love and production value than what the original Switch is. It's definitely not. You know, I dare say they'd probably be making less Switch Lite consoles than they would be normal Switches at this point, because the demand is obviously there for an OG Switch, and people aren't desperate enough to go out and buy out the lights. So, you know, that's one thing. And then obviously the new consoles have done absolutely bonkers.
Yeah. The only like devil's advocate sort of point I can think about, like just trying to like on the other side, is I guess with the next generation of consoles coming up, having it on the TV just invites comparisons to the other consoles. I know, like, you know, I'm buying the other two consoles, and in no way am I getting them for the same reason I got my Switch. My Switch isn't there to be the powerhouse, you know, swapping between games instantly. And
if anybody's trying to make that comparison in 2020, like you'd have to be a bit thick, I think.
Maybe,
you know, people it's just like it'd be like it'd be like going into, like, you know, back in the day it would happen all the time. Nintendo 64 versus PlayStation, or PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube, whatever, or the Wii. The Wii was a huge one. It's just like, oh, can't play my Call of Duty on that. It's like, well, you could, but
you can try.
It doesn't look as good, and it's motion controls. But yeah, you know, it's always been the same thing in comparison. Like, Nintendo's always been the one that's been below the other two in terms of like power and graphical fidelity or what have you, and people have always sort of put that to bed and been like, "Ha, shame Nintendo, you've got a box under the TV that's not as good." But this isn't a box under the TV on its own anymore. It is a handheld that has a box under the TV.
Yeah,
you know, and you know that is what it comes down to. But I do like my experience of like, you know what, something new's come out, it looks pretty, I want to play it on the TV. I play it on the TV, and there's some games that just literally run better on the TV, like Xenoblade. Both the Xenoblade games, they're not very good in handheld, like at all. They haven't scaled them very well. That never changed with Definitive Edition, but once you plug them into the TV, they look gorgeous. So
yeah, my favorite just feature is just like that instant switching, but like obviously in the dock, and like if Chantel's saying like, oh, like I might just be doing like raid battles in Pokemon, like something that I don't need the TV for. I'm like, you know, do you want the TV? She's like, yeah, that would be good. I'm like, all right, get my Switch. She gets it up, picks it up for me, gives it to me on the couch. I'm like, all right, cool. Here's a PlayStation controller. Go to Netflix, do what you need to do. So really, I didn't see anyone at all from like who I follow on YouTube or podcasting or just Twitter be like, yeah, you know what, that's a good take. That makes sense. Like, it didn't make sense because
I don't think anybody on that thread probably thought it was a good take, like at all.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Anyway, so moving on, Bryce. Nintendo has announced that there's a new Fire Emblem 35th year anniversary bundle. So you can download the original Famicom game, which has it's been localized for the first time in English.
Yep.
So you can go and get that. That is going to be the one I'm going to be picking up for $9. But before I read what's in this physical special edition, are you interested in the physical edition, or are you going to give this a miss?
The physical edition looks nice, but I haven't seen the price for it, and I'm a bit scared.
I'll tell you the price, my man. So just before we get to the price, it comes with a replica. I can't say it when I get tired. You know, replica. Yeah, I'm missing the P. Sorry, everyone. Replica game pack art piece, game sleeve, awesome. And a digital game code. So it comes with digital game code for a lot of physical collectors out there like, oh, it comes with a code, but it is what it is. Replica game box instruction booklet and map. Comes with a deluxe art book, which will probably be the main piece of it. A mini Nintendo Power collectible, which just looks like a bit of a postcard.
Yeah.
And it comes with like the nice box it all comes in. And it's like, oh, that's all nice stuff. But say in America it's $50, so it's $10 under. It's under an Australian, under like their full price game. Whereas in Australia, for Nintendo titles, we pay $80. For this, they're asking $90 on EB Games website.
Oh, piss off.
That is ridiculous.
It's a really nice collector's edition, but it is a fucking digital download game.
It's $9 on the eShop, just for context. So they're asking like another $81 for the art book and like, pieces of cardboard and the NES replica cartridge.
Oh, I could not think of a worse way to waste $90 right now.
Well, I can think of a lot worse ways, but yes, it's too much for me. So even
That's far too much.
Even the big Nintendo fan in me, not necessarily the biggest Fire Emblem character. I quite like Fire Emblem.
Actually, you know what?
What?
Make that replica actually have the Fire Emblem game on it and make it compatible with NES, and then maybe. You know what? Because then it would actually be a genuine bona fide NES copy of Fire Emblem localized. That would actually make sense for it to be 90, but we know it's just a replica. So what drives the price up that high? $10 for the game and then $80 for everything else.
Yeah. And just to add a bit more salt into the wound, it's only on sale until March 31st, 2021. So it's another sort of thing to go along with the Mario anniversary.
Nintendo, please buck this trend fast.
Yeah. And the funniest, I reckon my favorite thing about this whole announcement is a lot of people saying like, Mother 3 did get localized and released in the West, but it only lasted for like 3 hours and nobody noticed. So we did release it, but it was like, it's 30 seconds and it's gone.
We wanted it to replicate the number in the title, so it was there for 3 seconds and then disappeared.
3 seconds. No one even saw it. But yeah, so we won't be buying this by the looks of it. I'll be picking up the game digitally.
Oh yeah, because it's limited release and $10 for the original Fire Emblem, you can't really go wrong.
Yeah, because they did actually remake the game on DS, the Shadow Dragon, but this is like the original version, just localized.
Yeah.
Which is really nice. And it comes with like you can rewind features and save states and everything as well.
Which is good.
Yeah. Which isn't on, say, Nintendo Online. So anyone who's saying it should be included in that, well, it's like a lot of work. Actually,
they have actually put work into it.
A lot of work actually went into it, yeah.
Yeah.
This is something we actually didn't talk about on the show, but, Steve, in his initial release in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, on the windscreen, you can see his meat. You can see his meat. It was funny because I never actually saw it on my game. His winning animation was always building the house and exploding it.
Yep.
But I never actually saw the meat.
You never saw him meet?
I never saw the meat.
Oh.
But in the patch notes for 9.0.1, they fixed a lot of things in the game, just balancing in that, as well as taking out Steve's meat, which looked like a penis. It really does actually kind of look like a penis, really, in the Minecraft world.
Check out my penis.
Because, like, if you see here, Bryce, it doesn't really look like he's actually holding it either. It's just there. It's just.
I mean, if you don't play Minecraft, it probably doesn't seem like it to the naked eye.
I can see that he's holding it there.
It's clipped into his hand. Yeah, so it looks like he is supposed to be holding it.
But even if he's holding it, I guess he's just holding his meat, so it doesn't make it any worse. Any better, so.
Meat. I love that word. Such an interchangeable word.
Oh dear.
God.
Let's move on from
Steve's meat.
Move on from Steve's mate. Yeah. So this is from Nintendo Enthusiast, and Apex Legends has been delayed for Switch until 2021.
Oh, who cares?
Coming from publisher EA and Titanfall developer Respawn Entertainment, Apex Legends is set to follow Fortnite in beginning a major battle royale experience to the Nintendo Switch. We were looking forward to going hands-on with the handheld Apex Legends this year, but sadly we're going to have to wait a bit longer. Apex Legends on Nintendo Switch has been delayed till 2021. The Switch version was internally scheduled for this fall, but due to unexpected new challenges that 2020 has brought, a delay was necessary. No specific release date or window was given beyond what that it will occur next year. Maybe it will be a launch for the rumored Switch Pro. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So don't expect Apex Legends this year if you're waiting for that.
I mean, the game's kind of just like, could just be me, right? But I never hear anybody talking about Apex at all anymore. At all. Like, it was really good on release, and it was like a really good competitor to Fortnite. But it fell off like 3 months in. And then ever since then, I think it's up to like season 9 or 10 or something like that for the Battle Pass and whatever. And I opened it on Xbox the other day. I'm like, there's like 4 new characters here, and I don't know who the fuck they are. And then I'm like looking at the monetization schemes. I'm like, yeah, I haven't changed a bit. So I was kind of like, you know what?
Well, they're a bit rough, are they?
I'm good. No, it's just like they have limited time events, but those limited time events have loot boxes that cost like $10 each, and they're the only way to get specific skins. I'm like, excuse me?
Excuse me?
I'm like, you're telling me I have to spend like $80 for a 10 roll, and there's like maybe 18 skins in this bundle. So let's say even if I do make the 10 roll and still get 10 out of 18 of the new skins without getting a duplicate, are you telling me that I still have to make 8 more rolls after that to get everything in this thing, and that brings the total up to like a roaring like 150?
And Respawn's just like, yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yes, you do.
and that's not on top of like all the box content that's already in the previous game, and the fact that people still have to purchase characters. I know the characters are like earnable, and you can earn them with in-game currency and just buy them with in-game currency. But my experience from that, I had to play like, I'd like to say 80 to 100 hours or something like that of Apex Legends to get one character. There's a lot of time, right? Like that's not time that I wasted frugally. I played and like, you know, enjoyed my time with it or whatever. But when it was released, there was 2 characters that you could buy, and then the rest of the roster was free. It's like, cool, but I got one out of them, one out of the 2 of them, and I'd have to spend another 80 hours making my total time 160 to get the other one. Yeah, they made that much money off cosmetics and shit already. I don't know why it's still.
Oh well, it's coming the Switch next year, Bryce. So you'll be able to grind for characters on the couch.
I don't think it's going to get any traction.
Well, the thing is, I'm kind of really looking forward to seeing what it looks like on Switch, because I can't imagine it being a great experience on Switch.
I can't either.
I can't imagine it's obviously going to be 30 frames consistent at best. That's what we've got fingers crossed for. If it's any lower than that, it's unplayable, being a first-person shooter, especially if it's going to be cross-play in that with other platforms. You're going to be at a huge disadvantage. And we know what games look like when they lock in like the frame rate, because the graphics are going to have to go way down to even cater towards that. So I feel like in the article, Nintendo Enthusiasts, they suggested maybe it's for the Switch Pro next year, giggle. But I feel like it needs an upgraded Switch to run that type of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like, well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's... Yeah.
Like, if you have a laptop or a PlayStation 4 or whatever, like there's no way in hell you would play Apex Legends on Switch over any other platform unless your computer's just trash.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, even just leaving it at that, like, what was it? What was 60 FPS and like really Paladins? It was like Paladins, and then I was like, I'm like, forget Fortnite, forget Overwatch, which are running at 30 FPS, the competitive shooters. Paladins is running at 60. I'm like, that's beautiful. That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
That's the way you want it. It still doesn't look as pretty as its counterparts, but it did work. And it was sort of just like, that could still be the thing. And I even put my praises out about it. And I'm like, at 60 FPS, Paladins is probably the best you're going to get for a team-based shooter. Right? But, the problem with Paladins is it's struggled to take off in general in comparison to Overwatch and all that anyway. So,
yeah. All right. So, Bryce, that wraps up the news, and let's talk about Pokemon Sword and Shield, the Crown Tundra. Now, I was thinking about going to Reggie's Rec Room, but I think if we're talking about the Crown Tundra, we need to move outside. We need to actually go to the Crown Tundra. How do you feel about that, Bryce?
All right.
How do you feel about that? So
Beautiful.
very nice.
In the tundra.
Oh, wow, it's very beautiful out here, isn't it?
Oh.
Just outside the house of Murray. We're at the Crown Tundra the whole time.
No, I guess this is where we live now.
We live in the Crown Tundra.
I didn't buy any nice warm clothes. I've been here in shorts and a t-shirt for like the last 5 years, and you've just moved us to the tundra.
Well, remember how we moved the house Murray to Denmark?
True.
Now, did we accidentally move to the Crown Tundra?
Yeah.
So we could have had all this time to do the Max Raid Lairs the whole time, but we've just been sitting inside doing nothing,
God damn it.
playing Mario Kart and Smash, looking at Steve's meat. We could have had a head start catching all the Reggies and everything, but here we are
Yeah, and it didn't happen. Look where we are now.
at the Crown Tundra.
Freezing my ass off. Buy me a jacket, damn it.
All right. So, Bryce, the Crown Tundra. What has been your experience so far? How are you enjoying it? And let's break it down.
I've only done one thing. I've spent I'd like to say probably about 20 hours worth of game time on Max Lairs.
20 hours, holy shit.
No, a long time. I've almost bought 2 ability patches. I've done a lot of Max Lairs. No, I ran around and did little things like started the quests and stuff like that. But I haven't gone any further than that because I think the Crown Tundra for me, I already know what happens and everything because I was kind of just like, all right, I know that I'm not going to do it for a while. I'm just going to give myself the reprieve and find out what the fuck the deal is with everything.
So you've watched the story?
Yeah, I know what the goes on is.
Okay.
So I'm kind of just like, you know what? I'm just gonna get through that stuff, like watch it, and then I'm just gonna fucking ignore it for now. I'm just gonna go do Max Lairs because the thing is for the longevity's sake, and me actually wanting to play Pokemon, this is Max Lairs is like the end game I needed.
Yeah. So it sounds like something a bit more closer to maybe the raids in other games you play. Would you say that? Like a bit more longer, a bit more team based and
Yeah, I think so. And I think like there is challenges in there that do require a bit more team communication and stuff like that. And like a lot of people can attest to it. Having rental teams, I think, is like a huge play into what makes them such more of a, slice of content in comparison to, the Pokemon we've had before. Honestly, it's still not the most complicated system, and it is still pretty newbie friendly if
absolutely.
if you yourself know what you're doing and you can sort of get through it. But I think what's important about it is that there is still difficulty depending on what monster you're approaching at the end of your den. And there is strategy involved that actually requires you to sort of think about your next move. Whereas Max Raids before were kind of just jump in with whatever Pokemon was weakest, strongest to that typing and smack it down, So I'm glad that it does have that bit more of, I guess a semblance of having the experience to sort of get through these things. And the rewards themselves are good for, competitive Pokemon battling, and you can obviously, it's a good shiny hunting method, and the legendaries are there, which is awesome. And I think it does sort of just fit what you said before was my personal taste of like, I can use that as a method to sort of just keep the longevity of the game going. I'm personally not catching any legendaries until I get sick of trying to find shiny ones. So yeah, I think that's my go-to.
Yeah, and I guess for anybody who who hasn't jumped into the DLC yet or anything like that, like the Max Raid Lairs are pretty much you verse 4 Dynamaxed Pokemon before going against a legendary Pokemon. And throughout the way, depending on what you can choose, what path you take, and you might be able to find berries that heal your Pokemon up. You might be able to run into a professor that can swap or scientist that can swap your rental Pokemon
for a random one.
for a random one. And there's there's other things along the way too. So it's like a bit of a strategy to picking your path on the way through to try and catch the healing items and the things that you need on the way. And like you said, Bryce, it's I think it's just really well done. Like, it's only the first weekend we played it, so it's still brand new, so that excitement's still there. Yeah. Because like the original sort of Max Raid battles, like they were fun at first, but over the time, then they kind of got old, and people were exploiting them for shinies and all of that, and it just became sort of like, boring. Right. Especially like once you got all the Gigantamax forms, you're like, cool, I've done the sort of dex completion for those forms. There wasn't much reason to go back into them. Yeah. Well, there were plenty of reasons to go back into for like the candies and the rewards and just
But that was such a stagnant fight.
Yeah, it's
like
just
every time.
It's just really boring. Unless like you're watching TV or something, you weren't going to make the effort to do them. No. But this sort of brings new life into it. It uses those mechanics, but it sort of links them up and puts more stuff in between to actually make them more engaging again.
And it doesn't make them bullshit either. Like the problem with the Max Raid battles before was that going in with NPCs pretty much any time was a bullshit way to do it. And it was pretty much forcing you to go get with people. But I've actually done a lot of my Max Lairs solo. And I've had like pretty reasonable success.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, because the CPUs will have the same access to the Pokemon that you access.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's right. So you're not stuck with Martin's Solrock.
Like your partners will actually use like good Pokemon. Yeah. And like you might, I don't know if you, I don't think I've done any CPUs. I've been connected to the internet the whole time, so I just get randoms in. But do they make good choices and all that apart from what attacks to use? And
sometimes they do. They do have a real nasty habit. NPCs have a real nasty habit where if they pick the wrong Pokemon, right, it can get really annoying, especially if you're going against something, and like something that I've talked about a lot to people who are currently playing. Zygarde's an asshole, and is the hardest fight, I think, in the entire thing, because it has 2 party-wide moves. It has a free heal at 50% HP plus a massive stat boost because it gets complete form. And it becomes like a real chore to try and beat it. And you need like very specific party setups. But you know what would probably make that a little bit easier in some of the fights, not just Zygarde, but like in any other fight, what would make it a little bit easier is the NPCs not spamming like, I guess, stat raising moves so much. A real huge problem I came across was like, I think it was like a Rayquaza in the red. Like I was just about to kill it, and it knocked us out. And I remember getting very pissy about it because like I've been soloing most this time. I have done like some co-op, but like a lot. I'd like to say 70% of it has been solo. But it really ticked me off to the point where I went online because all this NPC did with its Pincurchin the entire time during that Rayquaza fight, and it would have had to have been like 6 moves, was hit acupressure. And then because stat raising moves don't really do jack shit, if that's all you're doing, because obviously in Max Raids they can be reset by the Max Raid Pokemon.
Yeah, so it's
it's just like, oh, I lost my stats, so it went back to acupressuring to get its stats back up. I'm like, please, why? Like, go away. That's like the only time I've ever had a massive problem. But like, before I accidentally erased it from my saved log, which I'm kind of annoyed I did.
Rayquaza?
No, it's Suicune. I was actually hunting Suicune. I had about an 80 to 90% success rate against Suicune, which is not bad, like just with NPCs. The more basic a legendary you pick, the better your success rate is going to be with NPCs.
Yeah.
So if you're like in a place where you're not going to be with any internet and you really feel like hunting like a shiny legendary, you can just pick a more simpler legendary like Uxie or Azelf or, you know, I guess just those little things, or Zapdos, Moltres, Articuno.
Yeah.
You know, just those things. And then you've got like a tier list that sort of goes up, and I know that somebody's going to sort of make one sometime. I'm waiting for that to happen, so I just can sort of just see in terms of difficulty. So at the bottom you would probably have like the Tapus and Uxie Azelf, and then at the top would be Zygarde and stuff like that. I don't think I've encountered anything as hard as Zygarde yet. And
I haven't versed Zygarde yet, so
I've got it saved there if you want to verse it. It's terrible. No, I saved it because I'm actually like, all right, I'm going to need a dedicated team that wants to do this, and I'm going to need to get a communicating team that wants to do this, because it is going to piss me off trying to do that with randoms.
Yep.
So I saved it in my log, and it's not leaving my log until I get people that are just like, yes, I'll do Zygarde. Yeah. And then I'll shiny hunt it.
Yeah. So let's talk about the shiny hunting side of things, because this is one of the things that's most exciting about this for people that actually hunt shinies.
Yeah.
Because in Pokemon Sword and Shield, it's been the generation of Pokemon with the least amount of ways to shiny hunt Pokemon.
Yes.
Like in Diamond and Pearl, there was just many ways to do it, and throughout the generations, there's always been some sort of way to do it, whether it was like using the radar or et cetera, et cetera. But in this one, it's pretty much just a Masuda method of getting a Pokemon from different languages, putting them in the daycare, and you've got a lot better chance of hatching a shiny egg. And that was pretty much it. There was some mechanics in the wild where you can run into Pokemon, defeat them, and once over 500 encounters or defeats, you can puts up your chance a bit. But apart from that, there was not many sort of ways in Sword and Shield. Whereas now there's these new raid battles. So once you actually catch the Pokemon, when you get to the summary screen at the end, that is when you can see if they're shiny or not. And without the shiny charm, so if you haven't completed the Pokedex, you've got 1 out of 300 chance. And if you have the shiny charm, you have 1 in 100 chance.
Yes.
And those odds sound really good, which they are, but it does take a long time to get through those battles. So it's it probably works out.
It's about the same rate as Ultra Wormholes if you played Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon.
It probably does work out, kind of similar, because like if you're just soft resetting in front of a legendary Pokemon, say in, Omega Ruby or something, and
or
you've
even
got
in just the same game. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can't really soft reset in this game because a lot of the stagnant legendaries are shiny locked. But you know what I mean, though.
The Reggies, you just knock them out.
Yeah,
just
you just
re-encounter them.
Yeah. So it probably does work out to be kind of similar, just for the amount of time you're putting in to actually catch these Pokemon.
Yeah, that's right.
But it is really great how you can opt not to keep them, and then you can like keep hunting them. And that's what I really enjoy about what Game Freak are doing with the games at the moment, is that like they're trying to encourage you not to soft reset to get shinies. And sometimes that works out to be kind of annoying because there are shiny locked Pokemon, being the starters, the legendary Pokemon. Even the legendary Pokemon that are new to the Crown Tundra, apart from the 2 new Reggies, they are shiny locked. Which is kind of disappointing because if you want the option, it kind of sucks. But they are encouraging you and making new ways for you to actually shiny hunt without doing the really boring, monotonous just exiting out the game.
It does make me annoyed
reloading and going again.
It does make me annoyed about the Bird Trio, because the Bird Trio shinies, I don't know if you've seen them.
They're beautiful.
They're awesome. Yeah, they're just their original color schemes, and that's awesome. And I really wish that was a huntable thing, but we know that that's going to be delegated to events, which is something that they really need to get out of here.
That's the thing with the birds, though. Like, they're roaming Pokemon. We'll talk about them more later, but they're roaming Pokemon. So it's once they're generated, that is what they're going to be. So you can't really shiny hunt them anyway.
Yeah, but I kind of wish they just had a method instead. Like they would be roaming.
Yeah, true.
You would roam them. Like obviously, go follow them wherever they may be, and then maybe you would fight them, and then you wouldn't be able to catch them until they get back to a lair, and then you would be able to do it. Like I feel like there's a lot of opportunity just for something like that, especially. I don't know if you caught some of the Crown Tundra leaks. Well, leaks, 4chan leaks beforehand.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, where they said like, judging by the law, it was like Zapdos would roam the plains of Route 12 or whatever that's near Stolenside, because it's like this sort of deserty area. And that's where Zapdos would reside, and that's why it sort of become the typing it did eventually. And then Articuno was sort of up north, and it sort of took on that, and then Moltres was at... God, what's it called? Had it in my head a second ago.
Yeah, so like...
The place where Marnie and that are from.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had it in my head 2 seconds ago. It's gone. And it was sort of like, it was like, they sort of migrated to the region and they took on that, the vibe of each area that was sort of there. And I thought that was a really neat idea. And I thought that could have been like, you would chase them around and roam and find them until they eventually get back to the lair, much like how they did in Crystal. Crystal was the same. You would just sort of run the legendaries around, run Suicune around until eventually it would end up at not the Burn Tower, the other one. And then you would have a static encounter with Suicune there. Yeah.
Yeah. That was Suicune though. The others you just catch as you battle them, like whatever.
Do you though? Because I remember them being there. I remember being them there during that static encounter.
Yeah, it was only Suicune that was a static encounter. It's been a long time though, so don't quote any of us.
Regardless of that's my point. Like it would have been awesome if it was something like that, and then you could shiny hunt them because those are really coveted. Like because it is just their original color scheme, sure, and like people might think, that's kind of boring, but I honestly think that's a really good throwback. And
I think Moltres especially looked awesome.
Oh, for sure.
Just having its flames and all that, the color. But, all right, let's talk about the legendary birds and like how you actually encounter them because it is really cool. Like they are in the world, you can see them and you are actually chasing them. And it's the first time in the series you're actually like really hunting a Pokemon. Like, obviously, Let's Go Pikachu, and that was the first time we saw Pokemon in the wild. And you got like, they're walking around the grass. You're like, oh, look, there's a Snorlax. Fantastic. I need a Snorlax. And you walk up to it and you catch it. It's like awesome. That's pretty cool. Yeah. And same with Sword and Shield. You're seeing them a bit more in their environment, walking around. But this is the first time where you're like they specify once they spread out that Zapdos has gone to the wild area, Moltres has gone to the Isle of Armor, and Articuno is going around the Crown Tundra. So they're all in their different wild areas. Mm-hmm. And the first one I went for was Zapdos, and it's in the wild area. And like you're like, all right, where is this thing? So you just run around your bike, and like for a game that has like really bad draw distance, like awful draw distance, obviously, I could actually see this thing like miles away. Like
they make it noticeable.
Yeah, they make it noticeable. And it's like, there it is. And Zapdos, it's like running like lightning fast.
Yeah, sprinting.
Yeah, sprinting. And it's really hard to catch on your bike. Like you've got to like
you have to cut it off.
Yeah, you got to like cut it off, and it's like really cool. You're actually like chasing it.
Yeah,
and that's only like the taste of maybe what the Pokemon franchise can do with this open world sort of take on it.
Yeah,
where you can actually like chasing the Pokemon. So,
and I think they're starting to realize that too. Yeah.
So like with what you said about like chasing it back to a max lair, I reckon that would have been pretty disappointing if you're just trying to hurt it instead of like rather than catch it.
I mean, no, because you would still sort of get the same thing. I think like they could play with that idea a hell of a lot more though. Like, you've got, let's take Zapdos as a primary example, how it's sort of running around the wild area. You've got to cut it off. Like imagine like, you do the same thing, but then once you knock it down, it runs off to another part of the wild area. And that part of the wild area, it's like, let's say maybe the desert ruins part of the wild area, and instead of just interacting with the ground around it and it's just running laps, it instead jumps up on the ruins and tries to use that to get away from you as well, and then sort of moves on and then comes back around sort of in a pattern, and then you would have to try and cut it off from like jumping off its usual landing path at the ruins to catch it. So it actually like sort of interacts with everything that's in the wild area as well, and not just running dirt tracks. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It just, I don't know.
And then eventually you would back it into a corner, and then, because that's pretty much what they did with Suicune. Yeah. And it was symbolic in its own way with Suicune, because obviously it was at the bell tower.
Yeah. He had like Usain actually like trying to catch it himself. And he's always jealous because you're the one who finds it.
Why did Suicune... But like it was symbolic in the sense that Ho-Oh had resurrected them from the burnt tower, and they were the guardians of the bell tower. And then you could sort of replicate that with Zapdos, Moltres, and Articuno in some way. Like maybe you back Zapdos into a corner, and it's actually like looking after, I don't know, a weak Pokemon or something in a den, or and you got like a little quest to do with that. Or
I like the idea of that.
There is like ways you can sort of tie that symbolism into it and make it more of their own story, sort of thing. And like, I'm not saying that just thinking of that alone like makes this disappointing. It's definitely really cool ways to encounter them. I just feel like if you wanted to make these sort of I feel like the reason they locked them is because of this whole once they're generated, that's it type of deal for roaming legendaries, because then they'll have people complaining, being like, it's not shiny, reset, and just like going back and forth. And I think that's the reason they're just like, all right, just shiny lock it before people start complaining, and then they can't complain. They can just complain about it shiny locked rather than having to deal with 1,000,001. I think that's why they did it, and that's kind of...
Yeah, I would say so too.
It's frustrating.
Yeah. And just like with Moltres too, like it's basically like flying around the islands, around the Isle of Armor, and like I'm like, oh, there it is. So I'll go up to it, and I'm like, then like the fog sets in, I'm like, oh fuck, I can't say it. And I noticed that it's doing a pattern, so I stay on this one island, and like it's flying over you, and so I do a whistle, and then it notices you, and it sort of backs up. And then it goes to attack you, because it's like Moltres being now flying dark type. It's like aggressive, and it's really cool. It's like it shows that it shows its character.
Yeah,
and same with Articuno too. Like you can see it flying everywhere, and I could, for some reason, I could only find it in the one place. It kept on coming back to the one place. So every time I go to that certain bit of the wild area, not the wild area, the Crown Tundra, you could hear its cry. I'm like, oh, it's there. So I go down there, and it double teams, and you've got to find out which one's the real double team. If you go and like interact with the wrong Articuno, it like disappears. If you do the right one, it like teleports and then attacks you. So it's like really cool. It's just like really fun. I can't wait to see some more sort of interactions like this in future Pokemon games.
And be polished up, yeah. And I think that is sort of the thing with Sword and Shield historically, is we've always been worried about its polish and what it sort of brings to the table. And they're always talking about like, oh, they don't have the time to model all these Pokemon and stuff like that. And I really hope this does change their mind with the next games, because they'll probably be remakes. Let's be real, it's probably Diamond and Pearl remakes or something like that. I really do hope they kind of change their mind and just be like, all right, all Pokemon are in them, and then be like, cool.
Yeah, we'll talk about that more sort of once we've discussed the Crown Tundra, because I got a lot to say about that as well.
Right. Okay.
But I guess like the main story. So you haven't played through the main story, but
I know it all.
You know it all. Have you watched it, or have you just like read up on it?
I've watched it because I'm not vetoing out any shiny potentials until whatever, and to sort of get to a certain point with the Regis and get Regigigas and all that, you need to have all of them. So I'm kind of like, I'm not going to push too far.
Yeah, I guess just for the next discussion about the story, obviously spoiler warnings if you're sensitive to that, but like this is like a pretty a basic story. It's nothing like mind blowing or anything, but if you haven't played it yet, you intend to, skip this bit or come back to it once you've played through it. It only takes like 2 to 4 hours depending on how much you get distracted, which I got distracted a lot. But yeah, so this is the story about Calyrex trying to regain its power and find its trusty steed. And I thought it was just a really nice, sweet story. Nothing mind-blowing or anything, but it was definitely better than the Isle of Armor story, which I've already forgotten.
I haven't.
I haven't forgotten it, but it was a very forgettable story, the Isle of Armor. But this one's really nice.
I will admit, I'd like Bulbous Head Deer more than I thought I would have.
Yeah, I do too.
Like, honestly, like looking at its design originally, I'm just like, Jesus fucking Christ. I'm like,
Jesus fucking Christ.
And I mean, even looking at the leaks where it's just like the fused form is just him on a horse. I was still like, Jesus fucking Christ. I'm like, God, it can't get any more basic. But then, actually having like a bit of a storyline like through it, and him sort of talking and like explaining things about him being the king of harvests, and how he was a huge important thing, like figure in the Crown Tundra that's just sort of just been forgotten, and just stuff like that. I think is like, it's good. It's good. I like legendary stories. I think that probably comes from nostalgia from Mewtwo Strikes Back, but
Yeah.
I think that's the same for a lot of all of us that are around our age group, that still play Pokemon to this day, as we all sort of harbour that story experience that comes out of legendary Pokemon.
Yeah, so like these like horse Pokemon were rumored or leaked or rumored for a long time, and they weren't mentioned in the marketing material at all. So this was like, I guess, a nice surprise to find the designs and the look of these two new Pokemon. I did look at the leaks beforehand because I could not help myself. God damn it!
I never do anyway.
But I couldn't help myself. I just want to see what it looks like.
Yep.
But I guess discussing the two new Pokemon, so you actually get a choice of what Pokemon you choose to fuse with Calyrex. So there's a Glacier or Spectria.
Glastier and Spectria.
Yeah. So I ended up picking a Glastrier.
I guess I'm getting Spectria then.
You can if you like. It's up to you.
Well, if we want the Pokedex entries, and like that's
What's
Well, we need to pick an exclusive there, but we're also going to have to share our Regis if we want Regigigas too. So that's another thing to keep in mind.
Well, that's why I asked you the other day. I'm like, oh, what choices do you make? You're like, I haven't done anything yet.
No.
All right.
Have you picked up? Did you pick up a Regi?
I haven't. I haven't done the Regi yet because I want to save one for shiny hunting.
I want a shiny hunt.
And
Drago.
I went through everything else. I don't have to rush the rest type of thing. So yeah.
That's right.
So yeah, the story goes through and you're just doing basic little stuff. You're exploring the Crown Tundra, and then it gets to the point where you need to grow a carrot to try and attract your horse friend, and depending on where you grow the carrot, so you can grow it in the snowy plain or near like a ghostly plain, and that determines what horse you get. And it's just I guess it's kind of cool that you get the choice and all that. I quite liked it.
I would have also just liked to have had both of them. Okay.
Yeah. See, I with the Regis, I was actually, when I heard about it, I'm like, oh really?
Yeah,
you
it's
can't
kind
get
of a pain
both?
in the ass. Yeah, and once you've, it's really weird how they lock it too. Like it's just like, have you seen it?
Yeah, like they're in the same area, and depending on what pattern you do on the ground, it determines on which one will pop up when you go and talk to the statue.
Yeah, so every Regi you have to copy their eye pattern on the ground to get them to wake up, I suppose.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with all of them except for Regieleki, Regidraco. They're in the same thing. So you've got to pick an eye pattern. And that'll determine your Regi. And then you have a chance to change it. You have one last chance to change your mind when you check the statue. It says something like, it looks like once you've pressed this, it won't change back. Like you won't have the option to change the pattern on the floor. And then once you've accepted that, then you're locked into whatever you picked. And like being new legendaries in general, I think, I think maybe the horses is fine, right?
Yeah.
The horses is fine to lock, and like you pick one, and then that's the Regis was just infuriating.
Yeah. So it is funny from a story point of view where it's just like, oh, like Calyrex when he's just like, oh, I can't remember what my horse looked like. Then like whatever one you pick, oh yes, that one,
that horse.
But yeah, with this, it's annoying because when we bought the DLC. Like, the two new Regis, like, a big part of the content, two brand new legendary Pokemon to catch, but, like, you're only sort of getting half of that. You're not actually getting them both, which is a little bit frustrating.
I appreciate the option to pick, but I don't know why Regieleki and Regidraco had to be, like, a part of that rule. It kind of just annoys me.
Yeah. Obviously, the whole thing is to, like, whether it's monetary or it is just being like, hey, let's get friends to actually like decide which one to get, trade them, all that, and actually work with one another. You know, all the the Pokemon blah 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 that they've been talking about for the last 25 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
because like
literally blah 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 blah.
Yeah. Because like it doesn't like locking these to a choice doesn't necessarily make you go and buy another version or another thing. So it's not necessarily them trying to make you spend more money. It just
makes you want to create a new profile on the Switch and replay it just to get to that point. And you don't even have to go very far. Like all these DLCs are situated, you can get them before you even get a badge.
You can go to them the same time you can go to the wild area.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is really cool.
Yeah. I mean, that just means, you can do it very, very quickly and get to it very, very quickly. But at the same time, it's just like, God damn it. Like, why are you going to put me through that extra effort? It's kind of just a pain in the ass. But oh.
Yeah, so that to be honest, is one of my biggest gripes with the DLC. And it's kind of like one of those things where, like, and just suck it up and get over it type of thing, But at least it's not version exclusive, because that's what I was getting a little bit worried about. Was being like, only Reggie Draco is on Sword, and the other one's on Shield. Yeah, that would have been really annoying. Yeah. Being like, I don't even have a choice, especially if you're going into it being like, oh, I can't wait for a Regieleki. But yeah. And it seems like with their stats too, they seem to be, real fast, but quite frail Pokemon. Whereas
they think Regioleki's the stronger one. They do. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, with there's sort of got similar stats. Just
Regieleki is the fastest Pokemon.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's the fastest Pokemon.
It's just really frail, and it doesn't really have that much spread with its moves either. It's only pretty much using electric attacks.
No, it does have a pretty decent spread. From what I'd because I'd been watching like videos from an analyst as well, like a top competitive player.
Yep.
And they reckon that the problem with Drago is he doesn't have as much of a pool as Lecky, and Lecky does not need a speed-based nature to benefit it because it's already a stupidly high base. So you can just invest that point in special attack instead, and you've already got yourself like a huge special sweeper with, an unbeatable speed stat already. So yeah, but yeah, anyway,
yeah, I'm looking forward to getting my shiny and maybe using it. Yeah.
I want the Drago just because I want the blue. It looks nice.
Yeah. And like, the Enter the Calyrex story is really nice. You just basically fuse it. Cool. He's happy again. Then you catch it. You're like, cool. Into the PC.
Yeah. See you later, guys.
Yeah. But I really like the idea of having that fusion where it's not like, say, in Generation 5 where they fuse together and they turn into some other like...
I really like that.
No. I really like that too. But I quite like this where it is just like literally like...
Look at my horse is amazing.
yeah, pretty much.
Give it a lick. It tastes just like raisins.
If the horse tastes like raisins, you're winning because it will just taste like hair and shit. It's an animal that lives outside. It won't taste good.
Shut up, woman. Get on my horse.
But I quite like it how it's just like literally just it's on the horse. I think it's cool.
That should just be the jukebox this week. I'll get that stuck in my head. 10 hours of that.
No, 10 hours, sure. That'd be great.
There is a 10-hour version.
No, I believe you. Yeah. But the thing is, I've got to leave it just recording for 10 hours.
Look at my horse. My horse is amazing.
Yeah. And it is cool because it is the first Pokemon with 2 abilities as well.
Yeah. I wonder how much they're going to use that concept in the future.
Yeah, I don't know, because it does make sense because it is literally
2 Pokemon slapped together.
There are just 2 Pokemon there.
I do feel like, a lot of that stuff can sort of be just delegated to one, like to just regular Pokemon as well. Like I feel like, there's a lot of abilities that sort of meld together just fine. Like maybe Moxie and Intimidate, for example.
Jesus.
Like imagine that. That'd be absolutely mad. Moxie and Intimidate.
Yeah.
It's like make you a real threat against opposing physical sweepers, but then also like being susceptible to special attackers because your abilities do jack shit, especially, it cuts your ability in half. I think there's like a lot of cool potential for stuff like that. I feel like the next thing for just like basic Pokemon in general is probably those kinds of upgrades where, they sort of put a bit more bit more of the actual personality into the Pokemon. That's not just, what it is.
Yeah. I'm just trying to look at what the ability is. I know Calyrex is Unnerve, so then you can't use berries. I think the other two... What were the horse's abilities again? Just trying to find it.
Just look at Calyrex Rider.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it was stat boost of some kind.
Yeah. It's like Unnerve. It's not like a super crazy ability to be paired with anything, so it does make sense. It is cool that the ability to allow two abilities is called as one.
Yep.
So it's like that sort of noble theme.
Just keep talking about it. I'll find it very quickly.
I'm sort of looking on here, but I can't find it.
I'll find it.
Yeah, Bryce will find it. He's good with the thumbs and the mobile phone.
Yep.
Yeah. But I guess just moving away from that until we do find the ability there, because I am curious just to see what it is, especially if we're going to talk about how it might be implied with sort of other Pokemon. But the thing...
Found it.
Okay.
So you've got as one for both of them, obviously. You've got Unnerve Chilling Neigh and Unnerve Grim Neigh. And it's when the Pokemon knocks out a target, it utters a Chilling Neigh, which boosts its attack stat. Or when the Pokemon knocks out a target, it utters a Terrifying Neigh, which boosts its special attack stat.
Yeah.
So it is stat boosts. Yeah, it's like Moxie. Yep, Moxie.
Yeah, so it's not like crazy to go against. Obviously, berries play a huge role in competitive Pokemon, so not being able to use your berries is hard, and let alone if that opponent is getting stat boost as well, if they're knocking you out. So it's pretty good, but it's not like insane, like Intimidate and Moxie. Whereas if you're knocking out Pokemon, you're getting your stat boost, and you're also putting down their attack, which would be just nuts. But sort of the thing I was looking forward to the most with this DLC, out of everything, was just the actual area of the Crown Tundra itself. The Isle of Armor we knew was going to be the smaller one, and just from all the leaks and sort of information we got, the Crown Tundra was going to be a lot bigger. Mm-hmm. And from what we've played, it is a lot bigger. I wouldn't say like it way bigger, but it is bigger.
It's very meaty.
It's
very much meatier.
Yeah. And I just absolutely love exploring new areas in Pokemon. I think that's the best thing we've got from the DLC. It's just been like, this is a game you've played for over 100 hours at this point, and here's a new area to go and explore. And we've never had that in Pokemon before. It's always been, hey, here's the third version or versions. Now restart the game, and you'll get that little bit of content at the end. With Ultra Sun and Moon, it's like you can replay the whole game again. There's a new bad team, and the rest of the content that's interesting is towards or at the end. Which I was getting to the point where I'm like, I don't want to replay the whole game again
To get that little bit of content.
Yeah, to go through the wormholes and battle Team Rainbow Rocket. I'm like, I want to do that, but I've literally got a copy I can just play it on now. Why can't I just buy that content for $20 or $30 or whatever and go with it? But now actually going in there like in game straight away, getting the new content is absolutely fantastic, and just being able to explore the area is so much fun. I really enjoyed it. Just the snowy aesthetic and everything, and having a fossil Pokemon roaming.
Yeah,
that was really cool. I'm like, these guys aren't extinct. It's like it was kind of like Jurassic Park in some way, where it's like this is this island, or not even an island. It is joined to the Galar region, but it is just part of the Galar region where it's like, well, this is where all these Pokemon are still living and breathing,
still kicking it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you think about your time exploring the actual area itself?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was pretty neat. I didn't really put like a heap of time into it. I looked for like all the Regidens and stuff like that, and then I was like slowly picking up a little bit of tracks of the Sword Trio because need to get. But the problem is I want to shiny hunt them as well, and then there's a Keldeo at the end, and I'm like tempted to go for the Keldeo.
Oh, Keldeo is shiny locked, my friend.
I don't know, but no, I'll just get the Keldeo in general. I'm kind of like.
You're like, I don't care if it's shiny locked, I'll shiny hunt it anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Then I know there's a Victini in there somewhere. And
actually, is that our version of hell? Shiny hunting a shiny locked Pokemon.
If it's Max Lairs, you know what? Fine, throw me in there.
It's just like restarting the game again and again. It's like it's never shiny. It's never shiny.
It's never gonna be shiny. Yeah, no, it is nice to see all the little environments again, similar to how Isle of Armor sort of did it in probably more of a confined space. I think the thing with the Isle of Armor was more seeing the fucking giant Waylord in the bay and like all that stuff was really neat.
I love the Isle of Armor, just like the actual island itself as well. So
yeah, it's neat. Yeah. And I mean, this is similar in every pretext, but I feel like there's more lore to every area than there is, in the Isle of Armor. The Isle of Armor is kind of just like, here is a bunch of areas, and here is a tower, and here is another tower. It's like, cool.
Excellent.
It's like, what are these for? Training one Pokemon. Excellent. I'll be on my way.
Yeah.
That is where it's kind of like, yeah, and I feel like there could have been a bit more there. But in the Crown Tundra, there is literally like, here is a Max den. It's like, it is a den that opened up that is like filled with the Dynamax energy, and like only specific Pokemon that are more resistant to it can go in there, and then they sort of explain that a little bit. And then you've got like the graveyard and like of the old town and all that stuff, and the Reggie ruins, and they've all sort of got stuff attached to them. You've got your 3 main quests, and they all sort of have their own little bit of like sort of pointing towards little things in the Crown Tundra, and it is much better and much more fleshed out. And like same goes for like the original wild area as well. Like that place had like the potential to have a lot more to it and did not. So it is sort of a lot more refreshing as a content pack. They did say to us that this was going to be the meatier one, and I'm glad they pointed it out, because it did make me sort of go, hopefully the next one's better then, because Isle of Armor took me 4 hours. And I'm just like, all right, I'm done. Yeah, that's enough for me. But this one I'm actually a lot more determined to stick around with.
Yeah, and like the content in this, obviously with the Max Lairs, it's just repeatable content. Whereas,
but it's good content. That's
absolutely.
That's rewardable.
I'm just saying the Isle of Armor didn't. It was just like a little bit of story, and it was very much set up for the competitive Pokemon scene, like adding moves, adding items, adding more Pokemon. That's what it was sort of designed for.
Yeah.
Whereas this is like, here's repeatable content, here's stuff to do, here's legendaries that will take you a long time, and all that. And it's just what you were talking about before with like sort of like the area itself. I think like once you're like going into the Crown Tundra for the first time, and you come to the first town, which is Freezington, which is just like the dumbest name. Freezington. It's like, really? You could at least call it Freezton or something.
Freezing town.
It's just Freezton. So okay.
Freezington.
But I can see a Pokemon game where the wild area, like this is the way how you sort of control the camera and everything, that is the whole game. There is no like routes or
I brought up
towns.
This concept before this game even come out.
You did,
Where it's just like the wild area was sort of more of just a big area in the center, and you could sort of like, travel off in different ways and go to different places and gyms like at any like particular time, and then like they would scale to your level depending on where you wanted to go first and stuff like that. And I think like that concept could still very much exist.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember saying in our review last year of Pokemon Sword and Shield where, I didn't mind the routes and all of that, but 100 and so hours later, I've never gone back to those routes.
No,
type of thing.
They're pointless.
Whereas it's always been like the whole game is in the middle. That is where the game is.
Yeah.
When you're actually like playing with friends or just doing raid battles or looking for Pokemon or whatever, that is where you spend the whole game. And sort of without these DLC packs adding more of those areas.
Spikemouth. God damn it just came to me.
Oh, yeah. See, I'm off. Like, sort of like
I didn't mean to get in the middle of you.
No, it's all right. The first like few regions, I can remember the town names, but like since then, it goes straight over my head.
Yeah.
Same with a lot of the new Pokemon as well. Like in Gen, there's like a lot in Gen 5 and 6, so I'm like, I don't know. Even especially 7 in sort of Sun and Moon. Like I was trying to, like, Picky Peck. Like I cannot remember the names of like who that evolves into. The big toucan.
Toucanon.
Toucanon. Okay. So yeah, I was looking at it in my Pokemon Home the other day because I hadn't put a Toucanon in there. I'm like, I can't remember your name, man. I forgot it even existed. Like, what a forgettable Pokemon.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So it'd be like so cool if the the next Pokemon games, like that is how the game operates, where it is sort of the 3D environments. And because like a lot of the time, like when in a Pokemon game, you're going into a town because you're going through a gate or you're going through a loading zone. Like it's going to go black, then it's going to load back up, and you walk into the town. But in this, it's like kind of like, oh, here's a town, and like you're like God forbid in 2020, so that the 3D game, you're like, oh, here's a town. You're looking around with the camera and going, oh, look, there's a house here, there's a store there. Like it's pretty simple stuff. It's like in every video game ever.
It was in a game that came out like 2 years before it. Thanks, Breath of the Wild, for giving us a bit more of a limelight.
Yeah, well, it is. I think because, like I said, my favorite thing in these games is just to explore and be like, there's a patch of grass. What's going to pop up? Like you see, like whatever pops up. That's pretty cool. But then you see like an explanation point, like, oh, well, there might be something even rarer in there. So then actually makes you go and have a look and see what pops up into an actual battle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just really enjoy it. I think it's absolutely fantastic content for Sword and Shield, and it gives me great hope. Maybe not necessarily for the games next year. Hopefully for next year. Hopefully they've sort of learnt with the second team at Game Freak developing these wild areas, but especially going forward where they might be doing improvements to the engine and stuff in Generation 9 in a couple of years or whatever they decide to put it out. I hope this is sort of the direction they go with the Switch.
I think my closing statement on this whole thing, I honestly think my closing statement on this whole thing is that I think there needs to be a time to listen, and I think the Crown Tundra has been so far an absolutely fantastic addition to a game that really could have just sat dead in the water. And the Crown Tundra adds more content for you to do PvE, like at least 20 hours of additional content in Lairs alone. And then, like with the content of everything, that's if you want to catch all the legendaries and stuff, right? Probably even more than that, because there's 38 of them. And if you want to go in the Lairs and catch all 38 of them, then you've got, about 20 minutes in between, whatever. You might get a couple of dud raids and get something else, and then
you will get dud raids.
But that's the thing. Like there is that content there, and then it does really give it a lot of endgame. And that is something that we've had a problem with Pokemon for a huge amount of time. And I feel like the way that they've gone with competitive and made everything a lot more accessible, and the ability to get a literal trash Pokemon that you've just held on to from the start of the game, you just love it so much, right? And just make it an absolute beast of a Pokemon and competitive battle ready. Like you have the ability to do that in Sword and Shield now.
Yeah, I mean, just before we continue on with this, but the ability patch, which we have actually brought up, where it costs a lot. It costs like 200 of the what's the new currency called again through the raid battles?
Dynite.
It costs 200 of that, which is a lot. You might get roughly 8 or 10 or 15, depending on what you catch and what you do in those battles. But it costs 200 of that, so it still is very rare to get a Pokemon with a hidden ability. But you can change a Pokemon that you desperately want to have its hidden ability. For example, I got a shiny Incineroar, which does not have its hidden ability, and without Intimidate, which is its hidden ability, it's useless in competitive.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and it really needs it. And so now I can save up through doing this,
get it,
and get it.
Yeah.
So just a great addition.
And that's what I've done to my shiny Sylveon too. But yeah. Back to that, raising literally anything from just absolute trash to, absolute treasure means that you can take a Pokemon that you've loved since the start of the game, but you've gotten to the end of it and gone, oh, it's actually really bad. But you can still actually put the time and effort into that Pokemon, still make it really good. And I think that's awesome. And I think with all these options, trudging back to the end game again, with all these options, as good as Max Raid Lairs are and their potential to sort of just have a constant repeatable content, which works for me, and I think that would work for a lot of people that do like the PvE, but time will tell and see. But Battle Frontier as well, now that we have all these competitive raising options again, well, for the first time really, you can form teams a lot easier, and something like the Battle Frontier would be a lot more approachable. Maybe not to the extremity of what original Battle Frontier was, Because as you know, because you went and got to like Brendan at the top of the battle pyramid, what? How many times?
Like 3 times.
3 times. It's like 100 battles.
I can't remember, but yeah, as a kid, it was hard.
It was grueling. Yeah, it was like 100 battles,
especially when you lose.
Yeah. But something like that, and I feel like with the options that we have now, it is far easier to be able to tackle that kind of content. Because in Emerald, like the reason nobody touched that content, if at all, is because everything about competitive Pokemon was brand new and nobody knew what the fuck was going on.
Yeah, and it was hard enough to level up your Pokemon, let alone breed them and do everything else to them.
Yeah, and like get them the right nature and all that stuff, and like having to know all that stuff in the first game when you're just a kid. Anyway, my point being is...
I didn't know it back then.
No, that's right. Yeah. That's right. My point is something like that where now the knowledge is much more available and we have all these options would really thrive as an end game for people who like to play, sort of more competitive style Pokemon. And then I think Max Lairs is a fantastic solution to PvE end game content with your friends. Screw the law about, Dynamax being a Galar only thing or what have you. You could have these Max Lairs back every iteration of Pokemon, put an extra twist to them, and they'd be the perfect PvE endgame for you and your friends to tackle. And I think that's what Pokemon has needed, and that's why Max Raids in general were exciting, but they fell flat because they're not as fleshed out as maybe, say, what Max Dens were. And Max Raid, what do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's getting
Max Lairs.
The terminology is getting a bit
it's getting a bit muddy. Yeah. Max Lairs, but Max Lairs are like a fantastic way, and I know I'm going to be communicating with people to do them because there is difficulty to them, which is something that I haven't said for Pokemon in a fair while. There's a lot of strategy involved, and I don't think I could say there's been strategy involved in Pokemon since like Diamond and Pearl. Really? Like even my favorite games, Black to White, I would argue there's less strategy in them than there was in Diamond and Pearl. As much as I love those games, and they're probably my favorite in the series, I do feel like the game does make you sort of try to think more in these Max Lairs. More than anything else. So, screw the whole Galar's the only place Dynamax can happen. Just bring it back. Bring it back the next, however many iterations of Pokemon, puts different spins on it, do whatever it is, and bring back a Battle Frontier now that we have all these options.
Yeah, because the competitive thing to do in the games at the moment is go online and enter tourneys or doing battles. Yeah, which is great, but it would be great also to have the option in the game to have something to work towards afterwards.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing is just thinking back to Emerald, like the Frontier brains. Most of us that played Emerald and played that remember the Frontier brains, even if we got nowhere near to even finishing the goddamn Frontier.
Nah, I got nowhere near either, but I beat the Battle Factory, the Battle Pike. I got to like the last battle a few times in the Battle Pyramid, which was a nightmare. And the Reggies just like fromped my team.
Yeah, that's right. But you remember the Frontier brains.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is it's the same scenario as just, I just feel like with all this that's available to us now with the online being more fluent and sort of stuff like that. And I feel like these layers work better than Max Raids, by the way. I don't know.
It's a lot quicker.
It's a lot quicker. It just gets in on the job and whatever. The communication's not great, but you can solve that yourself, right? Like Discord or whatever.
Communication's not great. There is none. Yeah.
Well, no, there is. Like you can like you're coming up to a Pokemon, for example, and everybody gets a choice of whether they want to take that Pokemon, and then it comes down to a random pick between the people that need it. So you can sort of communicate with your team just then, and it's just like somebody puts their hand up first, and right, I really need it. Like I'm struggling here, and then people can sort of go, that guy was pretty quick to press the button, so maybe I should just leave it, and then just let them take it. I've done that. I've gone like, okay, I think I can still continue with this Pokemon. I'll just keep going, But for things like Zygarde, I'm going to need more people. I'm going to need more people. That thing wrecks my friggin' shit.
So I feel like with this DLC and all of the updates since the game's release, it's come a long way since, E3 2019 where we first got the news, which, we were really disappointed at the time when we heard the Pokemon weren't coming back. And that came off the back of having gripes with the Pokemon series as it was. We weren't all that happy with Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Moon, how those versions were handled the next year. X and Y, that's on record now for, just being rushed out to market. And when we saw the news about the Pokemon, it's kind of like, well, it's not getting any better. And I feel like, with the initial release of Sword and Shield, I think just like the vibe the game gave off with its reach and everything, I feel like we sort of were able to push some of those things aside just because the game was fun to play for its gameplay, as Pokemon, always is. And it's a nice cast of characters, and it's really pretty region, and sort of the way the wild area was sort of pushing the series going. But the game definitely had problems just with its presentation and lack of polish, due from the fact they've only got probably 4 years to develop these games, so they're under sort of the pressure to get it out on time. There is no delay for the Pokemon franchise. There's too much riding on these games.
That's right.
And those problems are still there, but just with the DLC and what it's added to the games, I'm really happy with how Pokemon Sword and Shield have turned out, and just with like the Pokemon being added back into the game. We don't have all the Pokemon yet. There's still a good handful of Pokemon still not in it, but you know what? I'm not against the initial release not having all the Pokemon there, just being contained to the region. And if they want to offer DLC packs, being like, you can go to this, and that is where,
as long as those Pokemon remain free to everyone.
Yes, which they are free updates for everyone else as well.
That's right. Yeah.
But for example, like the fossil Pokemon aren't in the initial release of Sword and Shield. It's like, okay, that's not a big deal. But then you go to the Crown Tundra, and look, they're native to this area. And I actually, it is kind of fun having like access to new Pokemon and unlocking new strategies and things in the metagame for competitive play and that. So, you know what? It's actually turned into not such a bad thing, but we'll see where it goes. So how they handle it in the future. I probably would like to see them like eventually add all the Pokemon to each game as it goes on, but putting them out piecemeal isn't necessarily a bad thing either.
I will agree to pretty much everything you just said, but at the same time, I do feel like now that they have that first game out on Switch, I do feel like they need to get their shit together, and it needs to be as polished as it should be on day one. And then, that's something that has to happen. Unfortunately, like as much as I'm happy with the game now that it's been updated over the last year and a half or whatever it's been out, which is good. That's all.
Well, not even a year actually. Came out November last year.
Oh yeah, shit. Yeah. But still, my point remains in like when the game first came out, it was not in the greatest state. It was definitely fun. It definitely had its charm, and there was definitely some cool ways to keep me playing, like whether it was just more competitive breeding with more tools and stuff like that, and it was good. And it definitely kept me playing for 120 hours. But there was a huge lack of polish and some very, very obvious glaring issues and missing things that really should not have been a massive problem with the initial release it had. Draw distance is obviously a huge one, and it's still sort of like a current problem.
Yeah, just like pop in.
And the pop in, it's massive. It's awful.
Yeah.
Like this game, these Pokemon games, they could be absolutely huge and much better. And, I hate to sort of point it back, but, every time I think about huge open world experiences with, plenty of things to do, I always look back at Breath of the Wild and I go, this game can run on this console. I am more than 100% sure you can do this with a different series and have it run pretty much the same. And Pokemon is definitely in that ballpark. I do feel like max raids and the wild area and all that stuff is all fantastic concepts that can work very well. But it does need a bit of a tune, and it needs to, operate in a similar fashion if something else, like that can run on that. And whether that requires more manpower or whether it just requires more time, I think it needs to be done.
Yeah, because there are some parts of the game, like mainly like the Pokemon models and the character models, where you're in a cutscene or so, like the cutscenes that I've been watching in the Crown Tundra, like it looks like gorgeous, but then like the environment around it just isn't up to quality with the actual character models.
That's right. Yeah.
Whereas like, it's got a wonderful art style, like Game Freak, there's just masters at sort of their art style, but it's just it doesn't come together like in all the environments and everything else going around it.
Yeah.
Which you can see I think it just needs more time, but I think we've just got to maybe come to terms of how Pokemon is made and, the factory that sort of pumps it out and the pressure that Game Freak's under. We're not necessarily going to get that.
Yeah, but that's I don't know. That's more of a testament to work conditions for me. I like they're always going on record like, oh, they like to keep the team a certain size so that like information gets portrayed clearly. But there's there's AAA titles and even third party titles that just absolutely knock shit out of the ballpark when creating a big world and like making it look absolutely gorgeous and stuff like that. There's no reason a Pokemon game couldn't be that, and just sort of, thinking that things are all going to fall apart as soon as you add like maybe 10 more people to a team or 20 more people to a team is ridiculous. Like there's no, once somebody said something in a company and that's become the law of what the next game is going to be or whatever, having 10 extra members or 20 extra members to put a bit more extra oomph in your game and sort of make it work out is not going to make that much of a difference, and it's going to make people a hell of a lot more happy. It might mean you might need to yell a bit louder to get to those people, but
hey Frank, turn on your phone. I'm trying to send you assets.
But it might take that, but at the end of the day, you're going to get a better product out of it with a hell of a lot less complaints that came out about this game before it even came out. And that's something that the developers really struggled with sort of emotionally, as we know.
Yeah, absolutely, it would.
How they were like, oh, this is so draining. It's like we put all our hard effort into this. It's like, well, maybe it's not the quality of like what people are putting into it. They're probably working their hands to the bone. And like, they probably just need more manpower to assist the development of these games and not absolutely run this team ragged. And I think like that is my biggest concern.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting next year. Like it's gonna be Pokemon's 25th anniversary.
Zelda's 30th.
Yeah, and Zelda's 30th. It's 35th, is it?
35th.
Yeah, 35th. Yeah. It's only a year after Mario. So there's a lot of variables next year for Pokemon. So if we just go by trends, we are sort of expecting a remake, if not another mainline Pokemon game in itself. But just with coronavirus and how that's affected Japanese game development, that's been huge. Pokemon's already on a tight time schedule as it is, so who knows how that's going to affect the game. It might still come out and it just might not be up to snuff because they haven't been able to put the manpower into it. Maybe it will be delayed, or maybe, since they've moved Game Freak's team into the actual Nintendo building, maybe it's given them better resources and
I really hope it has.
Yeah, so that's my hope, that they have improved resources and improved accessibility to other developers and other talent at Nintendo.
That's right.
So whether they're there actually developing the games at the moment because of coronavirus, I actually don't know. Obviously, I don't know. I've got no idea.
I think they're back to office work under social distancing requirements and all that stuff.
Yeah, it could be.
I think they are, because most development studios I follow, I'm pretty sure are at that level now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully, yes. Hopefully it is sort of back to that, and yeah, it sort of works out better for them.
Yeah. So it's been a huge ride with this Pokemon game. Last year, it actually drained me. There was points where I was so sad, so drained, just because of all the negativity and just the personal feelings I had towards the games. It made the year so draining, and when we finally got the games, it was like, that we had fun. Thank God. Take a breather. The game was fun. All right.
Yeah.
And throughout the year, I've been still enjoying it. and then the DLC gets added to it. And I think content creators and competitive battlers are relatively happy with the game. There's a lot of stuff we have our fingers crossed for in the next titles to be improved upon, but I'm happy with how it turned out. And in the end, it wasn't awful.
Yeah, and that's what matters.
Yeah, that's what matters. So, Bryce, anything else you'd like to discuss before we turn off the mics?
Nah, I think that's it.
You reckon that's it?
I think I got my piece out.
Yeah. So we're going to be continuing to play Pokemon, and it's going to be fun. Hopefully, I'm going to be looking for a shiny Latias. It's been the shiny Pokemon I've always wanted my whole life, and I've never got one. I got a shiny Latios, and actually, speaking of the ability patch, I can move my Latios, which has an adamant nature, which is the worst nature it could possibly have. I can move it into Sword and Shield, and I can change it to Modest. It's going to be delicious.
You mean with the mint?
With the mint.
Yeah.
I was thinking abilities, but
yeah,
no.
Yeah, it's all right. Everybody's thinking about the ability patch. I've almost got enough to buy 2. So, I bought 1, so yeah, I got that, and then I've almost got enough to buy a 2nd. Yeah. That's a lot of Max Raid.
That's a lot of them.
All
right, everybody. Thank you very much for listening to the House of Mario episode 165. If you'd like to follow us on the Bluebird website of social medias, you can Tweetu. You can follow me at iDrewby. You can follow the show at the House of Mario, and you can follow big old Bryce DeWitt at IVRevan. If you'd like to join our Discord community, you can click on the link in the show notes, and that will take you straight to our Discord community where we keep you up to date with everything that's going on with the podcast. Obviously, catch up with the community we've built there. A lot of fun, a lot of good times. Shout out to everyone there. Really appreciate seeing you every day in there. Really cool. And I'd like to...
Thank you. Very cool.
Very cool. Let's not talk about that, man. And I've been really bad at doing this, Bryce. I've been forgetting. The last few shows, we just sort of sat down and all right, blah, 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 and get our stuff out, put it up. But I've made sure I'll remember this week that I want to thank our Patreon producers, which I've been forgetting for the last probably month. Very sorry, guys. Very bad on my behalf. But I'd like to thank Luke, Sam Hay, and who was the third one? I just...
Speaking of forgetting.
Luke, Sam Hay...
Is it on top of your tongue?
It is on top. I can't actually look it up on Patreon. I was trying to do it like before. Now I feel really bad. I've just made it even worse.
Look, mate, I'm sure to some degree they understand. We've been busy blokes, right? And getting together and do the show has been very difficult for the both of us. And they are aware of that. We've let them know every week that times are tough.
They are tough, aren't they, Bros?
Very busy. Very busy. Yeah. It's hard to get in the same room, you know?
Yeah. All right. I'm really sorry if I forgot the third person. I feel really bad now. I might have to edit it in after.
You're going to shoot yourself in the foot later and so on.
Yeah, so the thing is, like, once people listen to this, I'm like, oh, well, the third person was this. I'm like,
see,
yeah, I know.
You can't blame me because you're the one with the Patreon.
I am, yeah. But yeah, I can't bring it up, so I can't even look.
No.
So everybody, this week's Nintendo Jukebox is the battle theme for the new legendary horses. I think it was like
No.
We didn't talk about the music, but the music is fantastic and
yeah. A+. There you go.
Just like in Sword and Shield in general, it's just really, really good.
Yeah.
Really good. So good. So guys, till next week, the doors, the House of Mario are closed. Catch you later.
Bye-bye.
I know the Patreon producer. Well, I forgot it's DJ. I'm so sorry, DJ. If you're still listening and you haven't gone and threw the podcast in the bin and cancelled your subscription on Patreon, really sorry, mate. Really sorry. I haven't looked at Patreon for a little bit. Thank you, man. Thank you very much for your support.
He loves you.
I do.